Zohar indicates. It talks about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with the concept of time. So let's see what we could learn. First of all, Amar, he opened and he said, "Es hakel osa yofabita." That's a pasuk in Koheles. Everything was made perfect in its time. Gam es oilam nosam b'libam. He also gave the world within their hearts. That a person could never figure out the whole story that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. The story is so big, the story is so complex, that the human mind boggles. The human mind tries to figure out what's going on, to see the big picture. But the human mind cannot see the big picture. The picture is much bigger than the human mind can see. So this is the pasuk from Koheles. So it says, Tochazi, come and see. Zakoin in the mishtadle be'eraisa. Righteous are those who toil in the Torah. V'yodi listakole berucha dechachma, so they know how to look in the spirit of wisdom and understand the source of the statement. Shlomo HaMelech said a statement, it's filled with wisdom. So they look at the source, they can see the source of the statement. As hakel also yofabita, everything was made perfect in its time. All the works that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in the world, there's somebody in charge of that action. When somebody does an action, in his mind, it seems to him, oh, look at me, I'm so clever, I just came up with an idea, and this is what I'm going to do. He doesn't realize that every form of idea that he can come up with, it's only because there are already angels in charge of those types of thinkings, of those types of intelligences, and he's just pulling out one of the many options that he has within him of how he's going to respond to a situation. And all these angels, all these memanim, are in charge of our destiny. So they have one face when we're trying to look for what we want to do, and we're looking for which angels are we going to manifest, which ideas are we going to use in order to get ahead. And then those same angels, they turn around and they designate our destiny. So when we bring in angels into our experience by using them, by using their intelligence, by using their forms of thinking, we're giving them power. We're creating a force in the world that represents that angel, as we'll see. So it says, there's somebody in charge of that type of action, of that type of thinking, of that type of maneuver. Everything that we do is just combining different malachim, different intelligences within us in order to create reality. So just like, for example, when we speak, even though we might have never heard the idea that I'm saying right now, but the letters that I'm using are still the 22 letters that say all the other ideas that we've heard in our life. And the words that we use are words that were used by everybody else to say many different things. So the tools, the underlying tools are not ours. We don't come up with language. We don't come up with letters. We use what's available. And with that, we create. The same happens in the world of thought. In the world of thought, we use what's available, and with that, we create. But why don't we see it that way? Because we're so not aware of the details of our thought. We don't understand our thoughts that we never paid attention to understand how thoughts evolve and what causes us to think the way that we think. But there are underlying principles that are causing us to think specifically in the way that we're thinking and not in any other way. And these are intelligences that we can give power or we can take power from. It's ultimately our kingdom. But we choose who we allow into our kingdom, and then we suffer because they stay there even when they're undesired already, even when we notice that they're not so nice the way that they looked when we invited them in, but we already somehow made a deal with them. We already used them to get something in life or to gain something or to do something. So every action has a mamana, hen letav, hen levish, for good or for bad. Some of them are from the right side, and minhoin dargin is smaller, some of them are from the left side. So this has to do with the itim. So in Koheles, he speaks about the 28 itim. The 28 itim are the 28 different times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in life. all the times in life, all the experiences we go through in life can be designated as one of the 28 itim. And the itim start, let's say, Eitz lev, Eitz lisnei. There's a time to love and there's a time to hate. So these are 2 times. Now, when we go through life, we're going to choose how we're going to use these times. Sometimes we're going to use the Eitz lev, sometimes we're going to be nice, and sometimes we are not in the mood to use the Eitz lev. We use the Eitz lisnei. So we bring in these times, but there's an original intent of nature of when we should be using these times. There are things that we should hate by nature, and there are things that we should love by nature. But then we can be manipulated, and then we're going to love what by nature we should hate, but we're going to hate what by nature we should love. So then we're mixing the times. We're creating damage we're damaging our nature because we're not using our times in the appropriate time. So this is the concept of the 28 itim, of all the different times that a person could bring into the world. Some of them are to the right side. The right side is the positive side, like the time to love. And some of them are to the left side, the side of discipline, the side of taking away life. So then let's say the time to hate would be on the left side in this case. But the same thing, the time to build and the time to destruct. There are times for everything. There are times when both are useful. But we have to know, when do we build and when do we destruct? Who do we build and who do we destruct? So all this is something that if we have the intelligence, then these times can be used in our benefit, in our favor. We can create the right angels. If we don't have the intelligence, then we use the wrong times, and then we cause damage to our midas, we cause damage to our emotions. Then life doesn't feel so comfortable. So it says, Ozil banash li'yamina, a person goes to the right is unconditional acceptance, unconditional love. Ahi avodah da'ovid, the action that he does. Ahi dargem amana lahi seter, there's the malach that's standing on that side. The Ovid le'siyu, he helps him. There's a lot of angels that are ready to help a person in order to do the right thing, because his entire mechanism was originally built in order to do the right thing. So when we're talking about angels in this sense, we're talking about the energies that reside within our body, the energies that are running our organs. So there are different energies. Each organ has a different energy that it vibrates, that it creates, and that's a life force. That's something that works for us. Some of our organs, for example, absorb the oxygen from the air, like our lungs. So our lungs are constantly doing the work for us. Now this is very obvious that people see that lungs are important, because that energy that runs within our lungs, those angels that work for us, which are angels of life, they don't work for a dead person. As soon as you leave, as soon as you, the host, the life force, the consciousness, the awareness within the body is going to leave, those lungs will not be able to convert oxygen into blood because they will have no life. And so the angels will leave together with the life force. And therefore, those lungs will just be dead meat. The difference is now that you are there. Who are you? You're the life force, not you, the thinking, the one that's thinking and listening to my words. You, the one that is all the things behind what's happening. You, the life force that runs the entire body. That life force is what's real. This is who you really are. You might not know what it means to be that. You might not understand. Your imagination could throw you a blank, like, well, who is that? But it's somebody, because it's the one that created you, starting from your mother's womb. And it knew how to create all the organs, and it knows how to maintain them, and it knows how to give them life every second. And it does that through an entire host of billions upon billions of angels, of life forces, of energies that do everything that your body needs done so that you can be here on this planet, so that you can exist. And so when we use these forces in ways that are offensive to reality, offensive to humanity, offensive to our very nature, so some of these angels, they lose their energy, they lose their power, they lose their desire to give their full effort, we might say. But it's a natural process, obviously. It's not a choice. The angel doesn't have a choice. The angel is simply responding to reality. So for example, if a person is depressed, it means that certain energies within his heart, certain angels within his heart are not singing the appropriate tune that they're supposed to sing in accordance with their nature. Why did that happen? Because his heart got offended. Something in there got offended by what was taking place in life. And therefore, those angels are now hurt. They're damaged. They're not fully functioning. And the same goes for all the other problems that humanity suffers from, whether they're mental, psychological, or even if they're physical. All forms of disease. It all means that the organs, the cell tissue, the parts within our body that have specific functions, the angels that are supposed to do specific forms of existence for us, they somehow couldn't pull through. They couldn't do their task. And that goes back to the spirit. Everything reflects back to the spirit because the spirit is the one running the ship. The spirit is the one that's supposed to know how to look out for its soldiers, how to look out for all the different forces in it and make sure that no one gets hurt. Because then it can have a complete experience. Then it can actually be itself. It needs to rely on all these organs to function properly, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in order to be itself. Otherwise, the spirit is not itself. Otherwise, the spirit is out of balance. And then all the thoughts, all the words, all the actions come out of balance. So this is why he's emphasizing that these things are real. When you're interacting with life, you're interacting with something that's so very, very, very real that we can't imagine how real it is. That's why we draw a blank in our imagination. Not because it's so little that our imagination doesn't know what to make of it. It's because it's so big, our imagination draws a blank. It's way bigger than it can ever try to ponder. It's bigger than all the galaxies. It's the meaning of all these things. It's the purpose of all these things. It's the source of all these things. That's who we're interacting with. That's whose will we frustrate when we frustrate the nature of the spirit in ourselves or in other people. When we create anger within humanity, whether it's within us or within others, whether it's because we're doing things that are frustrating or that our beliefs cause us to be in such a predicament that what everybody else does frustrates us. So we have to be able to adjust our beliefs so that we can exist, so that we don't create anger within humanity, so that we don't create frustration within the spiritual. Because from there comes all forms of disease, all forms of dysfunction, all forms of people being out of balance or nature being out of balance or events of nature being out of balance. Catastrophes. Everything comes back to the spiritual. Everything comes back to the angels, to the forces that run life, to the forces that need to contain balance. And when they go out of balance, everything goes out of balance because we run that energy. We create that energy. We don't just create the energy that runs the universe through our hearts. Every single organ interacts with the universe. And the most obvious one we can see is our eyes. Our eyes interact with the sun. If there was no sun, our eyes would be meaningless. So we see very clearly how the one who created the sun created our eyes. And there's an interaction between the celestial body and our organ and the way that we can perceive life. And when the sun is down and we go to sleep, we close our eyes. That's nature talking. So there's an interaction between everything. Everything is interacting with everything, and we're just the clueless ones running around blindly thinking that we're not messing anything up. And then we wonder, why is everything so messed up? So he's saying when we interact with nature, we're interacting with live realities. It's like you're holding a machine gun and it's loaded. That's what it's like to walk around with a human mouth. You can cause severe suffering. There's no questions. Sometimes intentionally, but even unintentionally, we could say things, we could cause people to believe things that could be extremely harmful. And we're not even aware, but it all comes back to the forces that we allow into nature. What are we interacting with? Who are we bringing in? Because if a human being doesn't bring something into reality, into this world, then it doesn't exist. Besides humanity, there's a framework, there's a background, but there's no story. Humanity makes the story. So what's your part of the story? What story are you creating? Because the story is everything. The story is what gives meaning to the entire plot, to the entire background, to all the details. Everything is going to have a kind vibration or a negative vibration based on the story. What's the story? And that story is only created by humanity. Nobody else creates that story. There's nobody else that can create that story. Nobody has the tools. And that story runs our spirit. And our spirit runs our body, runs our biology. So that story runs our biology. That story gives us our chemicals. When do we get the dopamine? When do we get the adrenaline? Well, it depends on the story. Same events, you do the opposite things to different people. So what we bring in, we make that part of our story, and that story can judge us. It can bring in influence from the left if we choose to bring it into reality. So it says a person goes to the right, there's a whole group, there's a whole host of malachim waiting to help him. Why? Because all his organs were created for this. They're all running to help him. Who doesn't want to help him? But when he's out of balance, it could be one organ that suddenly wants to do something else. It says, he goes to the left, he does an action. That action of it, that action is now stating something within him. He just created a reality inside of himself. And now it's going to bother him. Now it's going to become his evil inclination. What does he want? He wants it to continue into that direction. Why? Because every spirit, what does it say? Be like me, be like me. That's what every spirit says. So if a spirit is no good with inside your personality, with inside your recording, he's still saying, be like me. It's not because everybody else is different that he's going to say, okay, let's be like everybody else. No, he says, be like me. If you're angry, he's going to say, let's be angry again. And then people have a short temper. What does it mean that it's short? It just means that in their mind, they've run through that path so many times that it's ready and available. Because they're feeding it. We're feeding these angels. We're feeding these forces. We're giving them the power. They don't have any power. It's our power. They're just ideas. They're just possibilities, potentials. But these potentials, they have real forces that created these potentials. We don't come up with the potential. We're just combining forces that were created within our DNA, within our biological system, so that it allows us to think in those patterns. And all this gets run by the stars. This is how astrology runs the inclinations of humanity. But now humanity is controlling its, or at least trying to control its activities by force. They do the same thing every day. So in that sense, they're at war with astrology. Astrology says that we're not the same every day. Every day we're different. So, so as a begin kach, a person does an activity, that he does it appropriately. That representative from the right side, is helping him. Meaning he created something in its time. He created it in the perfect timing. That action is suitable to the time. He didn't just perform an action. He performed an action in the right time. And therefore, he created now a guardian that's going to help him in the future. It's going to help him in his other times. And how does a person know the time? We don't know astrology. How can we understand times? How can we know what's good for what? So the first level that we look at is everything that is not under our control. Everything that's not under our control is what represents the basic background of where we're going to act, where we're going to present ourselves. And so this is going to tell us the basic times of what we can do and what we can do in those times. What are the parameters? What's possible? And then we look within ourselves. We look within our mood, our feeling. We tap into, where am I now? What's important to me now? What feels important to me now? And so this should be the result of what astrology is creating within us. The more fine-tuned we'll be, the more we'll be listening to the real self, to the organs themselves, and not to the chatter. And so when we feel where we're at, then we can realize what we can contribute to the situation, what we can add, where we can apply ourselves. Because the goal is that we should be present with whatever we do. Whatever we're doing, we should be fully doing it. We shouldn't be doing anything else. And so we should try, to the best of our ability, to focus on the thing at hand so that we can give it our all, so it can be a perfect product. Because then we're going to move on, we're going to do the other thing. And if while we were doing the first thing, we were thinking about the other thing didn't benefit, and the first thing lost a lot because it didn't have our full attention. We could have done it better. We could have done it more. If we were talking to somebody, we could have said something more meaningful if we were more present. So we want to give ourselves fully to create the angel that we're creating. Whatever we're creating, we want to create with all of ourselves, because that's what we have afterwards. That's what leaves with us. That's what we create for our future. And so to choose the time, you look at the scenario first. What does this scenario require of me? What does it want? Can I be that for it? Because then you're doing it yofa be'itoi. Then you're responding to the time. You're responding to a real necessity. And those are the most meaningful actions. Those are the ones that are going to give us the most reward, the most difference we can make in life for the least amount of effort. The more we try to create circumstances in order to do something, the more we waste energy on things that we can't control for the most part. So we respond to reality. Reality already demands of us so many things. We respond to that. And that tells us the times. That's what moves us. That's what tells us what needs to be done. And then we find within ourselves the inspiration to respond appropriately, to do the most of that. Now I'm being a father, I want to be the most of being a father. Now I'm being a spouse, I want to be the most of being a spouse. Now I'm cooking, I want to do the most of cooking. Because that's when we're being a lot. That's when we feel fulfilled. That's when we can get lost in what we're doing and do it with our full spirit without being self-aware, self-conscious of, am I doing it right and am I doing it wrong? I want to do it with all of you. And so you create time, you create days that are filled with all of you, that are filled with all your energy, that are filled with what you desire to create. And those days become spirit. Those days become the future you. So the future you has more of you. The future you has more energy. The future you is more invested because you created him with days that are completely involved, where you're fully there, where you're fully doing things, where you're fully invested in what's taking place. So you're bringing life, you're creating life. You're bringing life from the infinite and you're creating a vessel for more life. So this is, if a person does something, he creates a representation of that force within himself and within the world. And this is what creates the world. We want to know why the world is difficult. You want to know why people suffer? Don't look at God. You can look at God as the architect, the creator. He created life, yes. But within what he created, we, humanity, chose a difficult path for ourselves. We, humanity, didn't want to listen to the simplicity of life when it was simple. And now, even when we want to make it simple, we don't know how anymore. We got lost already in the complexity of it. Now that it's difficult, we say, how do you undo all this? And nobody knows. But the simplicity is still hiding within. The simplicity still lives on. If there was no simplicity living beneath this busyness, then we would all just drop. It wouldn't continue for even 1 second. So the real us is still there. We're still a real human being that Hashem created, and we have a purpose, and we have a soul, and we have a connection. All that is still very, very, very valid, but it's hidden. Our mind, our imagination is not there. It doesn't understand it, and therefore it doesn't know how to act in accordance with that. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We want to act in accordance with that truth, even if it's just for one moment while we're still in our body. So it says, he gave the world in their heart. It says, Kol alma v'kol avodah da'alma, the whole world and all the actions of the world. Lav inin ela berusa deliva. They only live in the desire of the heart. That's the only place that we can do anything, is within the desire of the heart. Once the desire of the heart is set, everything that happens after is not up to us. That's nature taking over. We create the desire of the heart, and then we send nature, we send our angels, we send our spirit on a trip. Go get me, fetch. And once we say fetch, that's exactly what it's going to do. Even if it takes days, weeks, months, years. Our life is in shambles. We don't know what we're doing, but it's still going to fetch because we said so. That's how powerful we are. So it's all up to the elusive deliver. It's all up to the desire of the heart. Where is your desire of the heart? What do you want? Because that's what you're creating. And if you want something impossible, then you're not creating anything except chaos. Because the heart's going to try anyway. If that's what you want, that's what it's going to do. What else is it going to do? If all you figured out that you want is for somebody else to leave you alone, then you're going to be busy with that somebody else all the time. Because you want them to leave you alone. That's the only thing you want. You didn't think any further. What do we want? Where are we going to spend our desires? Where are we going to spend our power? To think, to feel, to plan. Where are we sending our angels? We have a whole staff. We have a whole army. Where are we sending them? What are we creating? It says, Kol ha'olam nosam b'libam, we put the whole world in their heart. You want to know what's happening in the world? You want to know why is it good? Why is it bad? Go back to the source. Look at the human hearts. They created this world. God created the board, the globe, and the pieces, the human beings. We created the game. Boy, has it been a tough game. People have paid with their lives. Is that the best game we can come up with? That depends on our attributes, our midas. What kind of game are we going to be playing? Are we going to get to know the Creator through joy, through pleasure, through realization? Or are we going to get to know the Creator through pain, through suffering, through the tears? Depends on us. We decide. He put the world in their hearts. That's where the key is. It's in your heart. Whatever you're going to create, that's what it's going to be. It's an important guess. You better make it a good one. So everything is berusa deliva, the desire of the heart. That's it. That's your bechira. That's where you can decide what you stand for. Once that's locked in, everything else is nature, including your behavior. You can scream at the top of your lungs, I don't want to behave like this. It's not up to you. You typed in your desires. This is the outcome. This is what it prints out. Don't fight with your behaviors. revisit your desires, revisit the source. Your behaviors are a result of the organs, the malachim. They never make mistakes. They carried out the mathematics exactly to the right point. You'll see that one day. Everything was carried out exactly. But you typed in something that resulted in an error in the machine. Look at what you typed in. What do we want? And the worst thing that we can want is when we're angry. This is why anger is the hardest of all. When we're angry, what do we want? Destruction. Everything that's not good. And that gets printed. And everything that gets printed gets executed. Everything that gets printed goes into reality. Reality is real, never gets forgotten. We can choose to forget. We're human. We can have whatever experience we desire based on our beliefs. But reality creates itself based on past events. So the present contains within it the entire past. Nothing has been forgotten. That's why we are the way we are. Had anything been different, we would be different. So the whole world is within our hearts. As soon as he raises a desire within his heart, and it goes to the mind, and the mind starts thinking how to do it, and the organs start engaging, and then nature happens. It says, HaCohen and tzaddikim, righteous are the tzaddikim, and they pull in good deeds. They know how to direct their desires in order to create good things to happen. To do good to themselves, to create good in the world. To create things with the forces that are available within man that are going to do good to humanity, that are going to bring kindness to this world. Which time did they bring down? They bring down the Eis Sholem, the time of peace. The time of peace is a time that works in all times. That's why I say we should be Oev Sholem and Roidev Sholem. When it's a time to love, it's a time for peace. When it's a time to hate, we should also be looking for peace. It's always a time for peace, because only through peace are we going to be able to build the world. All the times are only here in order to create peace. So it says, everything leads to peace. Through the power of giving to others, of giving pleasure to others, even though you didn't receive, you give to others. The Oven Sata, they do it, they bring down goodness, they bring down kindness into the world. They bring into the world the level that's called everything. It's a feeling that a person has, that he has everything. It's not, he doesn't have to have anything in order to have this feeling. It's just a feeling. It's a feeling that he has everything. There's an abundance within him. He feels fulfilled. He feels like life is worth it. So when people increase kindness in the world, then this feeling comes into the world, the feeling of everything. When a person has a feeling of everything, he doesn't need anything. So this feeling comes through tzedakah, through giving to others pleasure without expecting anything in return. Because you want to bring these malachim into action. You want to create goodness into this world. You believe that this world should be a world of goodness and kindness and easiness and no suffering. And therefore, you're going to manifest that reality to the people around you, because this is what we do for each other. We create reality for each other. So you're going to create the kindest reality humanity could ever come up with. That's what you're going to bring down into the world. Those are the malachim that you're going to create for yourself and the people around you. And then those will become the realities that they interact with. Those will become the realities that their organs will be able to absorb and will be able to prosper with. Because they'll have malachim who want to work with each other. Their organs will want to work with each other. Their mind and their heart will want to work together. There's going to be unity. There's going to be a togetherness, because everything gets created in the form of how we bring it into the world, of how we perceive reality. We create our own organs. We constantly recreate the tissue. We constantly recreate the malachim. And it all depends on our thoughts. Every organ gets fed by different areas of our beliefs and our interactions and our understandings. And this we can see in the heart, how it responds to information. You can see it in different organs. All the organs are constantly responding to information. All the malachim have certain interests, certain intelligence of what's in their best interest. And they're constantly listening to information to know if they're going to be okay or they're not going to be okay. Are we going to think things that are good for us? Are we going to think things that are bad for us? The organs are very intelligent because they do an intelligent job. They create life. So it says that the tzaddikim, through tzedakah, they bring into the world the level that's called koil, the level of everything, lanhora be'ita, to shine in its time, so that people can have access to this level called everything. So it says, vailan l'chayavaya, pity on the people who are guilty, they don't understand the time of action. They don't know how to do the appropriate action. To do it fully with the emotion and the mindset that's necessary. My tama, why don't they do it? Begin the layadin, because they don't have knowledge. Therefore, everything was given to the desire of man. A person cannot see what Hashem created from the beginning to the end. Because people don't do their actions appropriately, so that they can correct the world, so that they can connect all these different emotions to their appropriate times and to their appropriate events. Says a person that doesn't know how to connect to the appropriate times, then he should just do good and be happy. So not everybody is ready to understand the subtleties of the different times and what's required. But if a person can't do a specific kindness to each time, he should just always be kind and always be happy, because those are the forces, those are the malachim that are helpful to humanity. Just like they're helpful to the people doing them, they'll be helpful to the people it's done to. So if we bring in healthy forces into the world is healthy. And these forces are invisible to the human, to the physical eye, but they can be very obvious to the mind if we apply it appropriately. If we think about it and reflect on how the world works, we can see these forces in action. We can realize how people can offend different parts of their lives, different energies, different experiences, and then these relationships that they created with these experiences can cause them a lot of harm. And the same way, positive experiences, they build how we think about life. They build how we think about ourselves. They build how we think about the one who created us. Because our entire experience is really a reflection of the Creator. That's why it's so important. If the experience wasn't a reflection of the Creator, if we could just think about the Creator as based on what He created and not based on our individual experience, then for sure we'd have the highest esteem. We have the utmost respect. We would be nothing but grateful and singing His glory and praise. But because we have our experience, so now we're trying to justify, hey, but if He's so nice and He's so kind, then why is He doing this to me? And then we look around and we see, hey, He's not just doing it to you, He's doing it to everybody. How could that be? How do you reconcile this huge gap between the kindness, the goodness that wants to help and wants to do good and never stop, and the reality that we're facing within our bodies? What are we supposed to say? So different religions deal with these questions different ways. Some religions want to say that this experience is all a dream, it's not even real. But that's not Judaism. Judaism says it's very real. And the reason it hurts is because we're doing it wrong. Why are we doing it wrong? Because we don't know any better. Because we're so distracted, we didn't even notice that there's something to get right and something to get wrong. We thought if you do what everybody does, then that's as good as it gets. But that's not the truth. There's something entirely different that's expected of us that we haven't thought of. But we're lucky because the thing that we haven't thought of is us. It's our nature. We can't really forget it. We can just become distant of it. We can black it out, or we can open up to it. We can become it. We can merge with it. So it's not something that we have to create, not something that we even have to find. It's something we have to allow, something that's already true. It's more true than anything you've been telling yourself since you've been born. It's the one that's been telling these things. That's the one we're talking about, not what he's been telling. So that truth, that potential, that possibility of what it means to be you and what's possible, that's the reality that the more you open up to, the more you'll have of yourself. And you're already that, so there's no point in denying it. You're just very little of it. So you want to figure out how to be much more of it so you can really be it while you still can. It's all about the significance of the events taking place. We don't realize the significance. We think other things are more significant. We think certain numbers, certain levels of things, certain sizes of buildings, or certain amounts of people can be more important than the essence. But what religion is here to tell us, what the ancients are screaming from their graves is, no, 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 no. There's no way. There's nothing. You can build the biggest tower. It's going to go all the way to the moon. And it can't touch your essence. Your essence is way more important. Everything is just a distraction. Everything. Man-made crap. That's all it is. It's another way to lose yourself into an external illusion. Something that you're going to see while you see it, and as soon as you turn your back on it, it doesn't exist. And you're going to lose access to your essence. You're going to lose access to what it means to be you. You're going to lose access to what it means to be alive. You're going to lose access to how important the Creator made every detail of you. How much you put in order to make sure that you come out perfectly as you are. You need to understand this so that at least you understand what you're dealing with before you waste it. Man has lost his way. He's forgotten what he creates. And along the lines, along the way, he gets angry at nothing, for the simplest, littlest things, because his nerves are already completely maxed out from whatever he's trying to accomplish. And not only did we make this a possibility for a human being, we made this the default setting. If you're not extremely clever, you're going to spend your entire life servicing this beast, doing stuff and doing other stuff and doing more stuff. And in the meantime, your life is passing by. This was supposed to be something. Somebody gave you something over here that you were supposed to receive. Something extremely important. Something extremely meaningful. And the ancient people saw this happening. They saw it coming. They realized that people are losing sight of the spiritual, of the internal, of the important, and they're falling for the gimmicks. They're falling for the senses, what can be perceived by the senses. And when we're young, this is all we have. Our senses develop first. Our intelligence develops later. But the adults are supposed to know better. So instead, we send them to college so that they can't figure it out. So that they're also busy externally. So that they can go make money. So that they can continue building the tower that goes to nowhere. We weren't created to produce. That's not what you're here for. He doesn't need you to produce. He produces much better than you. We can't compete with his production. If he wanted other things, he could have made other things. He wanted you, and he wanted a relationship. He wanted an understanding. He wanted a depth. He's not impressed with our money. He's not impressed with our buildings. How many people wasted their lives just so we can live on top of each other instead of living next to each other? So that we can all work, so that we can all run after the dollar together. We could have spread out, lived next to the crops, and then we wouldn't need to run after the dollar like that. There's a way that he set life to be, and it's silly for us to reinvent life unless we really know what we're doing, and we don't. We don't even know the first thing. We don't even know, we can't even measure the quality of life, of what happened to the human experience because of the way we build our cities, the way we live. It's not even measurable. It's something that's so spiritual. It's so the root of our experience that it's not even, you can't even verbalize it, but it's most certainly real. It's life itself. So we have to at least realize the difference. We can't undo what man created over thousands of years. But we have to realize the difference between what man made and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu made. The wisdom of nature versus the foolishness of man. So when we bring in these forces, every person that created an idea, created a concept, created an invention, he was interacting with higher forces and he was bringing them down into reality. One of these events was the person that invented writing. This was probably in Samaria, in Shinar. And Hanoch, in Sefer Hanoch, he says that this was an evil invention. This was an invention that was created in order to control man. And so God was not pleased when man received writing. Man received writing too early in his evolution. He wasn't qualified to write, and he started writing. This is why we needed Moshe Rabbeinu to go up to Shemayim Kevyochel and bring down a luchos that's written by Etzbe Elokim, meaning this is what nature is really telling you, nothing else. Don't believe anything else. Because people were creating realities that they had no idea what the consequences are going to be. They had no idea what it means for a person to think that for an entire lifetime, how that's going to affect his malachim, his organs, his function, his desire to live, his happiness, his social skills. People started writing just because they could. And so now the norm is that if you want to know how to be a regular human being, you have to read a certain number of books, at the very least. And you have to comply with a certain number of books at any given moment. Very different experience, I'd say. I bet it affected quality. But nobody's thinking about the experience. We're measuring things. We're scientists. You tell me you have an experience. Who are you? You're anecdotal. You're just one guy. Who cares? Okay, the other guy says, who's he to say? Can you measure it? Can you show it to me on a chart? No, I can't. Doesn't apply. Sorry. Not real. Oh, it's real. It's very real. And they knew it's coming. How do we see? We see by the behavior. We see by the poems. We see based on what they thought, based on what they believed possible, based on what made sense to them. And then we know where they were and where we are, big geniuses that we are. We know everything. We've measured it. So we bring in forces. We bring in forces, and those forces are real. Can they be measured? One day we'll be able to measure them. For now, we can just know that they're there, because we have some friends in the ancient world that wanted to tell us. They were kind enough to share. So we have to be aware of what we bring in. What are we creating? What's the environment around us? What are we allowing to happen through our energy? Who's using us? Because we're the vessel, we're the tzimmer. And the ultimate goal is that there will come a day when all the evil forces will be annihilated from the earth, which means that they will not rise within our consciousness. They will not rise within our awareness as an option. All the evil spirits will be banished for eternity, because humanity will be intelligent enough to never interact with them again. And so, may we have the merit to realize that truth speedily within our days.